All right. So to answer your original question, Alan, I just got back from Iceland. I had done a 9 day hike. 9 days there. Really, the hike was 6 days,
Okay.
and I had done about, I would say, maybe about 85 kilometers. I would say was our hike. It was great, beautiful, just amazing going through. Volcanoes, glaciers, like some of the minerals in the mountains, like just different colors, almost orange and then I don't know, it was just incredible. So great views. Really enjoyed it.
Nice.
Yeah, you took a lot of photos and stuff and put them on social media. So if people haven't seen that, they should go over to where do they go? Human
Oh,
REI.
yeah, Qman REI. You can see them on Instagram or on that's probably the easiest place.
Yeah, yeah, really cool. Okay, so everybody, I just want to say welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us again today. And as usual, Quentin is here, and he was just telling us a little bit about his trip. But so thanks for being here again today.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. This is going to be a great show.
And I just wanted to let everyone know who's listening, please go over to breakthroughreipodcast.ca and get in touch with everyone that we've ever had interviews with. They're all of the show notes are there and ways to contact the people who piqued your interest in whatever show it was that you're reaching out to them through. So go over there and do that, and then of course go over to iTunes, leave us a rating and review. It would be really great if you could do that. And speaking of Instagram, I was just looking. We've got like almost 8,000 followers on Instagram.
That's
So
crazy.
if you're not following us through there, go over and do that too.
Yeah,
Breakthrough Real Estate Investing Podcast.
that's good.
So what's
So
new with you,
Looking
with
at
me,
other than all of the adventures you've been having? Like what's new? Let's what's new with the investing?
oh, well, I don't know. I've been just working on refinances really. The bond rate, CMB rate just went below 3 for me, for multifamily. It's starting to look good for CMHC second mortgages in order to pull out capital. Maybe another, I would say like half a point to a quarter, 3/4 of a point, then I'll start looking at pulling out capital from different buildings. So I'm really looking forward to that. Lots going on the real estate side as always, right? We had the interest rate cut, the third cut in a row, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of analysis on the amount of cuts and how fast they occur as compared to the number of months that it took for the increases to happen. So there was 16 months of increases or time where that occurred. Then it's kind of stayed the same. But usually what happens is that with the amount of increases that happen, let's say 16 months, the decreases usually happen at a faster rate. So if most of the increases happened over 16 months, we can guesstimate that the decreases will all occur within 16 months. So that would bring us probably to the fall of 2025, where we see a majority of those decreases happen. And the fact is that we increased interest rates 900% in those 16 months, the highest that we've ever seen it, and the fastest that we've ever seen it happen. And, you know, every time we've seen this before, or at least the last two times that we did these really big increases, it usually was followed by a recession. So if we can get out of this without a recession, I would say that that's going to be very interesting to see. I was doing some number crunching on that, and I don't see it as a possibility, but who knows, right? We're all kind of hoping that that's not what happens, but the way that unemployment rate is starting to go up, starting to hit 6%, and then you start to see the foreign workers being cut back and things like that. It's all interrelated. I think there's in general, fear that's not being said that we are already in a recession, and we have been for quite a while, and that some of the things that we're seeing now are those sort of effects from that. Anyways,
Yeah, I would say it'd be hard to escape. That's my fear anyways.
yeah, yeah.
But what else? Did you have anything else? Oh, you don't have the notes. Oh, okay. Here, let me give those
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've also been thinking a lot about, and I wrote a couple of articles. One was, kind of analyzing those numbers when it comes to interest rate increases and decreases. The other thing that I was thinking a lot about lately is risk. Again, the number of real estate investors that I've seen who have taken on bigger projects that they just weren't ready for, and for no reason other than they wanted to try something different instead of doing what's working. They take on additional risk, and when you're younger, it's easy to take on risk, right? So, like, say you're in your 20s and your 30s, it's easier to take on risk, whatever it is, like skiing, snowboarding, whatever it is, because you can recover quickly. But as you get older, it's harder for that recovery to happen. It takes longer, and the amount of risk that you should take kind of goes down because it's going to take a longer time to recover. Well, I was thinking about this a lot, and some of the people, why they're taking risks are because perhaps they didn't buy those assets earlier, or they didn't save enough, and now they're trying to overcompensate, and they're investing in private lending and doing promissory notes that promise 14 to 16%, or whatever it is, and then those investments failed, and then there was problems that occurred because of that. So I'm starting to see that happen, and you always hear that saying, you see who's swimming naked when the tide goes out. Well, when interest rates increased so fast, and as we mentioned before, and all these projects started to fail because it was based on the fact that there needed to be increases in value, and when interest rates increased so fast, the values didn't increase. In fact, they decreased. You had a lot of projects that went sideways. And then people who, they're doing infill projects, all of a sudden started to do these big developments. And, they're starting to fail. Like, they're running out of money and not closing on projects, or, borrowing a lot of funds and using the funds that they borrowed to pay the funds that they had from before. Right? All of those things are people taking on more risk. And sometimes I think it's just ego. Like, you have to say something, you have to do something that's a little different. And, you want to post it on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is to be cool. Or whatever, and maybe it's an ego thing. I have no idea. But instead of doing the boring stuff that works, just do the boring stuff that works, and
Well,
that's
when you see the
consistent.
boring stuff that works though, too, it's like when I broke into the market, like when I first started investing in real estate, it was a great time to do it. But there have been people along the way that have started, year after year after year after year, and they found there was some people that maybe, started uh, in like the height of the market, let's say, just before it kind of crashed. And I would like to hear from some of those people, whether it's a success at that time, or something that didn't really go well or as planned. I would really like to hear from some people who started investing at that time and hear their stories. That'd be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, I'd love to have them on the podcast, right? See, we can
Mhm.
we can do some a little bit of Q&A, and hopefully pull out some golden nuggets like we're going to do today
Mhm.
for our guest here.
I emailed you the show notes.
Okay. I haven't got them yet, but
Really?
yeah.
I've been having trouble with my email.
Throw it in WhatsApp and that way I'll get it right away.
All right. All right.
Yeah, all the challenges with multi-country podcast.
Yeah, like we're not sitting beside each other.
I, yeah,
There you go.
appreciate it. So I guess the thing that we're seeing now is hopefully a rate cycle decrease. And when we see this rate cycle decrease, hopefully what we're not seeing is the real estate market moving really well. Like we're just seeing properties sitting and definitely issues that are having that we're having moving product, right? I'm seeing not a lot of showings and not a lot of properties being bought and sold. So it's quite an interesting um,
Yeah.
situation.
Well, like you said, we've definitely got someone that's going to touch on the current market here with us today. So I'm excited to have Allan Bell join us in the show, and he is going to share with us his insights on short-term rentals and the ever-changing real estate market, which we could probably jump right into that, and also where investors are going these days for mortgages. So welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, gents. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. So tell us a little about yourself and how you got started in real estate investing.
Okay, so I guess an aerial view of where things started. It I was in mortgages. I've been doing mortgages now for 6.5 years, and then the pandemic hit in 2020, and things slowed down. Everything for 3 months or so, and I looked at my life. I had one daughter and another one on the way, and realized that if you need to have multiple streams of income, you need to have things to fall back on, you need to have other opportunities. So I kind of started looking into things, and being in mortgages, real estate was kind of something I enjoy. So started listening to podcasts like Rob's, got into that. I listened to a few others out there, and I eat, breathe, sleep, uh, everything to do but real estate for several months. So that way I understood. And the one quote that stands out to me the most is your network, or your net worth is your network. And every time I listen to a podcast, I would connect with with the host and also with the guest, just to get to know them a little bit more, see if I can pull any nuggets from what they've been doing, how it can help me and figure out what I wanted to do with real estate. So after that, convinced the wife, which sometimes can be a very difficult thing to do. There's usually, when you marry, there's not usually two people that are bullish. There's usually one that's bearish and one bullish about certain things. So my wife is more um, conservative when it comes to certain things and didn't want to, jump in feet first like I did. So anyways, started flipping a house in a town near London, and then bought a property up in Peterborough and did a long-term conversion on that property, which was pretty neat to convert a barn actually on the property to a 2-bedroom unit, making it probably the first garden suite that was available in Peterborough. And ran into some problems with a contractor there, and had a uh, long problem that went from a 4-month renovation project to about a year and a half before it was finally complete. And then at that point, timing aligned for us that the market had slowed down and the cottage market had kind of come to a complete grind in 2022. And things weren't moving. Everybody, rates had risen up significantly. Everybody's kind of sitting still. It was now November, December of 2022. And we're like, okay, well, let's get rid of this property. Everything's coming out now about the landlord tenant board and the problems they're having there. Our tenants that were in the house was leaving, and the barn conversion had just been completed. So we're sitting with an empty unit. And instead of trying to place two tenants, we said, why don't we put this up for sale? And it worked out timing wise that we made just a little bit of money. We didn't lose our shirt on the project, and we converted over to a cottage property and have been operating that now for almost 2 years. We've gone through 2 summers. This will be our second fall. So we closed on that of March of 2023. So been operating short-term rental up in Bancroft for a year and a half now. And exciting news for myself, April of this year, I decided to make a transition to be fully self-employed in mortgages. So I've been a mortgage agent for 6.5 years, but for the last 6 months now, I've been fully self-employed, not working on a team kind of thing with salary and commission. Now I'm fully self-employed, 100% commission. And I have to say, I'm loving it. The
Yeah.
flexibility and freedom of being self-employed is great. The time you can spend with your family, go to meetings, go to events, all of that stuff is definitely a great bonus being self-employed.
Okay. What kind of changed? Well, like, why did you feel that you needed to change, and what's the, you know, what kind of got you to change?
Um, well, the employer I was working for, I wasn't happy with anymore. Unfortunately, there was a lot of promises that just weren't being kept. Carrots being dangled or told we're going to do this, do that, and things just weren't coming to fruition. So it was time for me to go out finally and make a change. And I had an opportunity kind of with someone I worked with in the past that had a brokerage that kind of set me up for some great success. So it's going well so far. And just having flexibility, having a cottage that we do short-term rental on, it requires a lot of extra work, and having that flexibility where on a Wednesday afternoon, I can, jump out of my office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to get up to the cottage if I need to do something. Or, maybe it's not rented. Hey, let's try to get up there with the family. We can tinker around, clean things up a little bit, do some extra work to it, because there's always stuff to do to keep it, in perfect condition kind of for guests or adding stuff to it. So having that flexibility and having a young family, it just made the most sense for me at this time in my life to have that flexibility.
Oh, but with this change, are you able to travel while working at the same time, or is that still, does it give you some location independence?
It absolutely does. Yeah, 100%. So it, again, this kind of comes back to the flexibility thing of it, why I kind of made the choice. My wife's family lives out in New Brunswick, and we decided, a couple weeks ago, last week of summer, hey, let's just go out there for 4 or 5 days. And that allowed me that flexibility that I could take calls on the road. I could get to the hotel and I could log in and on Wi-Fi and connect and do some work in the evenings or mornings and have that flexibility to be able to do that. Whereas before, I would never have that flexibility to work wherever I wanted to. I can work at the cottage if I need to. Like there's a lot more flexibility where, yeah, I can travel and do work still.
That's awesome. And so how much of, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
how much of your income is derived from your self-employed business, and how much is derived from your real estate portfolio? And how does that affect your flexibility?
Right now, we're not really getting an ROI on the cottage. We're doing
Okay.
more of what at ROT, so return on time.
Yep.
We rent it out as much as we possibly can, and then we'll go up and enjoy it with the kids. We want those memories with my two young girls to get out of the city, enjoy going catching fish and frogs and having campfires and seeing the stars and all those things that kids don't get when they're down here. So return on time for me is the bigger one with the cottage than it is really as an ROI. The first year we were successful in, you know, being in the green. Wasn't much, but we were in the green on the cottage last year. This year we've done some renovations to it. We're converting the basement to 2 bedrooms and eventually working on finishing off another living room in the basement. So it'll go from a 2 bedroom cottage to a 4 bedroom, and then hopefully increase the rents on the short-term rental for that as well too. Most of my income that covers my living expenses, everything will be coming from the mortgage side of things. The real estate side is just more so for kind of a passive long-term play to have mortgage pay down and appreciation. And really any extra money we get from the cottage right now, we're just pouring back into it. to make it a better rental so it stays booked more often, make it more enjoyable for us so we can bring friends and family up and everything.
So so your asset base right now, like the way that I see wealth generated over time is having an asset base and owning it for a longer period of time. And the only way that you can own an asset base over a longer period of time is for it to pay for itself. So the asset base that you have right now is your primary residence, your cottage rental, and your cottage,
Yep.
right? So that's what your asset base is. And in 20 years or 30 years from now, that asset base is going to give you a lot of wealth, right?
That's the game plan. Like the hope would be to get another cottage eventually. So where we've got 3 properties and hand 2 down to my kids, they can each get a cottage or, figure out how we divvy up the wealth, but go to a retirement spot for my wife and I, and then divvy up the wealth between the 2 daughters and each of them getting a property so they can kind of start off with some success because it's difficult now for kids to be able to afford anything. Anybody under 30 is having a hard time saving up unless they're being gifted from mom and dad, a down payment. It's difficult to afford that with the way that mortgage rates are and the cost of real estate.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was at the gym, and I'm not going to say any names, but I had a call from a realtor's wife that I know, and they're having a tough time, like with the interest rate changes and what's happened over the last couple of years, where they're really tight, and the fact that the spouse's business has not been doing really well. They're taking on additional debt just to be able to make it every month because they bought like a really like a house in a nice area, and that is it's good for them and their family, but it's more house than they can afford with the way interest rates changed over the last little while. And it's just, and I spent it, and like, I mean, like I'm not a realtor myself, and yeah, I'm not a mortgage agent or anything like that, but people often ask me questions around real estate, and she's asking me for predictions that I can't make. Like I can't tell you whether your house is going to sell, whether you list it today or 6 months or 12 months from now. But the thing is that, you either you take the loss or you need to increase your income some way, right? Whether that's short-term rentals, Airbnb, renting out a room to a student, finishing your basement, and putting in a leak. Like there are different things you could do, but you have to be actively pursuing those things. Or if you're going to sell it and you're going to buy a smaller property, when when prices are going down, it's a good opportunity to move up into a market, because then you're taking a smaller loss perhaps on your where you are, but you're taking a bigger perhaps discount on going up. But if you're going from up to down, you're actually going to be losing that equity, and you have a bigger loss that will take you a longer time to recover, and you may not even qualify for a new mortgage. It could be very challenging for you. So I'm sure in your business, your self-employed business, that you're seeing that more and more. Um, as pressure has been building over the last 2 years, and interest rates have, people are I mean, I talk to the Uber drivers when I take an Uber, and some of them are professionals that are driving Uber just to make extra money to pay for their mortgage. I like
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Like, are you hearing that as well?
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people with extra income. So whenever I'm chatting with someone about their income, I'm asking them, what other additional income do you have? And can you show that income? You got a lot of people that are having side jobs, and sometimes it's like, oh, okay, I'm just repairing fences, or I'm, doing Uber, or I'm driving for Amazon, or whatever it may be, where they can pick up some extra hours and a few bucks cash just to survive. Sometimes it's cash under the table, which makes it difficult to use for qualifying measures. But I feel like almost everybody is having to try and take on a secondary job just to make ends meet. And that's kind of where my specialty lies with mortgages. I'd say, most of my experience has been consumer mortgages. And then a lot of it also has been investor-based mortgages where I've helped investors get qualified for buying their first rental property or refinancing a rental property to go buy the second. But most of my experience has been with consumers and consumer debt and getting them into a better financial position. I feel like our our education system has failed people substantially on how to be savvy with your income, with your credit, understand how mortgages work, understand how the economy works, everything just as a cost. And prior to the pandemic, I don't think anybody talked about inflation ever. I don't think I heard a conversation with a single friend, buddy, anybody talking about inflation. And now it's the only word you hear or see about anything and everything. And people don't realize that their $60,000-$70,000 a year job that they thought was cushy, all of a sudden inflation goes up and that 60 grand is not worth 60 anymore. And people are having to take on that second job just to make their 60K feel like 60K again. So I've helped a lot of consumers by looking into the equity that has been built up in their home, by having it a while, consolidating the debts that they're carrying and trying to lower their monthly expenses, discussing a lot about credit. It's surprising how people don't know how credit impacts. And when you're carrying debts, 30% of your credit score is built up from usage. So if you're carrying a credit card or a few credit cards at 70, 80, 90%, even though you're making your minimum payment or paying a little bit more, overutilization of credit is one of the biggest impacts to your credit score. So if you've got that extra equity in your property, refinancing, restructuring things is one of the best ways to get you back on track in these difficult times.
Yeah, it's interesting. This would be a good case study. I mean, like from what I'm told, the property that they had purchased was like around 1 million. At the top of the market, it was worth 1.7. My guess is if they sold it today, it'd probably be worth 1.2, 1.3. And then they borrowed additional funds in order to float the property. So you know, maybe they're maybe they're at 900, their mortgage is 900,000, and maybe they have a little bit of equity there, but then they're also breaking a mortgage, a 1 year term. Now there's sorry, 1 year left in their term, right? So their term ends in August. So for this type of a person, if they came up to you and they said, and I know I'm missing a whole bunch of variables. This is
Of course. Yeah. Oh yeah. I tell every client that too. There's so many variables they tell me, what have I qualified for? Well, like I don't have that little crystal ball where I can just wave it and tell you, here's what you get. There is a lot of variables, but continue on. Sorry.
Yeah. So what's if and they were previously in B lenders and now they're in an A lender, and they're afraid that if they get, if they sell the property and they move into a different property, that they're going to end up with a B lender again. And one of the things that they were thinking about was, well, can we port a mortgage? And I don't think everybody understands what porting means, because let's say their mortgage is currently, 900,000, okay? And they want to port that mortgage. Like, you can't just buy a $500,000 property and
No.
port your mortgage. Maybe you can explain that to people, because I think that's something that they hear, but it's not quite an understood concept.
Yeah. So porting your mortgage, using the example you've got here, if they wanted to take their $900,000 mortgage and move it to a $500,000 house, the bank likely won't allow for it. You have to first off, you have to requalify. So when you're porting your mortgage over, they're going to re-look at your financial picture again and see if you can still qualify for that mortgage and make sure, something hasn't changed. So we ended up doing that for when we sold our Peterborough investment property and ported our mortgage over to the cottage, because we still had 2.5 years left at a 1.69 rate fixed. I didn't want to get rid of that because that's going to help us with, the cottage first couple of years to get things going, that lower rate. So we had to requalify, and the property that we purchased was valued a little bit lower than what we had sold. So we had to take advantage of prepayments that were accessible with the mortgage. Every mortgage usually has a 15-20% prepayment option. So we had to take advantage of the prepayment options so we didn't incur a penalty to reduce our mortgage down. So to reduce a mortgage from 900 to 500,000, it's not likely they've got enough prepayment privileges to drop it. But if a client in that scenario, I would suggest a few different things. First off, if they have equity, we could look at using the equity to take some cash out to offset their income. They could live off that cash for a little bit till hopefully things get better. We could consolidate debts, and we could go about doing that in a few different methods. So number one would be a blend and extend with their existing mortgage. So if they got another year left, we'll say, with their mortgage, you could blend together at the current amount that they're looking to take out with the existing 900K at current rates. So call it 100,000 we took out to reduce the debts. You could see 40-60% reduction in their monthly expenses by consolidating the debts. That extra cash they took out, they could subsidize the payments for things to make things a little bit easier, or go back to what you were saying about, maybe renting a room. Maybe they take some of the cash, convert the basement to a rental of some sorts. Take on someone living in there that could help them with additional income. The other thing I'd look at is, again, maybe porting their mortgage over to a property that they could afford. Maybe they move to a duplex and they house hack. They live upstairs, rent the basement on a $700,000-$800,000 house rather than 900. And it doesn't have to necessarily be their next long-standing life decision to live there. Take 2 years, take a step back, and which may end up being 3 steps forward in 2 years, where now you've got this duplex or something else that you can rent out, and then you go get your dream primary residence of some sorts. But unless you're leveraging the equity in your property, a primary residence is kind of an asset that you're not taking advantage of until you hit retirement age and you want to sell it. It's just kind of dead equity there. So, I mean, they could even take the equity out and invest it if they wanted to, depending on the rates they qualified for, turn around and invest it into private mortgages or other investment vehicles that would give them a return higher than what they're borrowing the money from the bank at.
Yeah, those are great ideas. That's cool. So what's your main focus now as an investor?
Right now, I'm looking for opportunities. If something was kind of a slam dunk deal, then, again, going back to my wife, convincing, her that this is a good transaction. Right now, we're comfortable with where we are. Again, if with me just starting being self-employed, going back to qualifying for mortgages, even though I've been in the industry for 6.5 years, 6 months being self-employed, Schedule A banks usually won't look at me. I've got to get about 2 years under my belt before we can really start using my income. So unless it's something where I can use my available assets, my equity in my property, where I have a home equity line of credit, and I can, flip a property again or do something like that. Right now, it's just about boosting our short-term rental and getting the maximum benefits from that property, finishing up the renovations. So if the time comes where we wanted to flip that and buy a different type of cottage, or maybe diversify and buy 2 from there, wherever it is, just setting ourselves up, kind of hunkering down right now while things are a little bit tighter and watching where our dollars go. That's really where we're at right now, just making sure that we're, kind of staying safe until we figure out where, when the dust is going to fully settle with everything, with all the rate increases and where the market's going to go with everything.
Okay, so you're like
Yeah,
in a wait and see.
Yeah.
I would agree with that now. It's like, it's funny because people would always ask me, like, should I buy something now or should I wait to see what happens? That's always how it was worded. Wait to see what happens. I'm like, well, how long are you going to wait? Like, what are you waiting for? When will you know if it's happened or not? Like, in 3 months, you could wait another 3 months. It depends. But I do think that I'm hearing that a lot more from people. And to be like quite honest, I've had to sell off a couple of properties that I didn't want to necessarily sell, but it helped me get by in a little bit of a tough time over the past few years too. So I think that I probably won't be investing in anything in Ontario at this point in time for the next little while anyways. Again, I'm saying it now until I kind of see what happens, right?
Yeah, just you're setting yourself up and watch your money, get prepared, watch it. Because there's deals and there's opportunities all over the place. You just got to be open to looking at them. And if you sit on the bench for too long, then again, 3 months, 6 months down the road, oh, prices are going to come down. They're going to come down. Rates are going to go down. All of a sudden, well, rates come down, prices might start going back up again. So I think it's preparing yourself for when the opportunities arise that you take advantage of them, but don't overextend yourself. Do it in a proper fashion where you've got exit strategies. And you're not structuring yourself where you've got no outs. I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to underwrite deals again, and I'm starting to see some real opportunities in multifamily where prices have kind of come down and to more reasonable levels, and sellers have come down to more reasonable levels, and now the cap rates are starting to spread between what the interest rate is and the cap rate is. I'm starting to see that again, which is making me I'm really bullish right now in potential opportunities, and I've been doing some interesting underwriting. So we'll see in the next couple months. Maybe I'll have another apartment building under my belt. But you know, obviously I'm cautious and careful because there's always challenges, right? But this is where the opportunities are for me anyways. It's, kind of seeing it. So, um, when you're thinking about your big challenges with short-term rentals, how did you overcome them?
You got to have multiple exit opportunities, basically, is the easiest way I put it. Like, we had a cleaner. You want to make sure you've got a cleaner that you can rely on. So if they decide to just not show up to clean the property when someone leaves, or you start seeing problems where you're getting complaints from guests, you want to make sure that when you're interviewing cleaners, you interview a few of them and keep them as a backup. So that way, if there's, a situation that rises, um, and you got to be flexible. You have to be constantly adjusting because the market is shifting constantly as people's dollars are not going as far. They're maybe not looking for as long as a trip. Maybe they're not looking for the crazy expensive $5,000 a week cottage rental. They're looking for something a little more budget friendly. So it's adjusting your pricing. It's constantly adapting. It's a fluid situation. So, um, getting started, it was just realizing that you can't just post a short-term rental on Airbnb and it's just going to fill up. We had to go and research whether their booking sites are out there, um, strategically put photos for each season. Getting ready now into fall and going into winter, we changed all of our display photos and the photos at the front of our Airbnb and stuff to adapt for the season. So you want the photos to show how beautiful fall foliage looks. And as we go into the winter, show that we've got toboggans and we can do a skating rink and you can do ice fishing and, building snowmen or different things like that. And then the summertime, display all of the features the product has for the summer: kayaks, going fishing, going to get dairy or Cortha dairy ice cream down the street, or whatever it may be that, kind of people look forward to in that season. It's constantly adapting towards what is out there at that particular time.
Did you find like a big increase or a change in the occupancy when you started doing that?
Yeah, we do. So we weren't really getting, as we approached August, we were empty for the fall. We didn't have any bookings for this fall. And so my wife and I, we started to just adjust all the pictures and everything. We picked up an Airbnb booking a week ago for a weekend where the gap that we didn't think was going to get booked, it got booked. And then this past weekend, someone booked at 8 p.m., checking in that night. So I think it's, adapting and changing things. It's now for September, we've only got 4 days available. That's it. We're fully booked for all of September. We've got this coming Sunday to Wednesday available. Other than that, we're going to be fully booked. So, and then October, we're about 50% booked. And right now for November, we don't have any bookings, but that's pretty common because November is kind of
Yeah.
there's not much to
Well, I
do.
mean, also, people aren't necessarily booking stuff like that, that far out. So you'll see
That's
it fill, I'm sure you'll see it fill in closer to the time.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said to my wife too. Like it's people for the fall, it's they more so if they want to go see the foliage, they want to wait for the leaves to change. They don't want to go up too early or too late, or you don't want to check the weather maybe. Okay, let's wait until Tuesday and see how the weather looks for the weekend kind of thing. Whereas summer, it's a little more easier to predict, okay, we're gonna have 30-degree weather for the most part. Let's just book our summer vacation for the week at a cottage. Whereas I'd say the shoulder season, spring, fall, and the off season in the winter, it's more last minute things, um, as opposed to booking people way in advance kind of thing. So, but you got to adapt. You got to show your pictures differently, so that way people see, hey, this is a good spot to go at this time of year because they offer this.
Yeah. I find that like it's just constantly watching it too to see, if the rate's set right, if your nightly minimums are set right, all of that stuff. And then my wife is actually super bullish about having a day in between just to make sure that the place does get clean, because I know a lot of people would like that takes away quite a few days of the month
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. But we've got our minimum set, like our minimum stay is set really high. So, so having the day in between is good, just because if the cleaners don't show up, it is a little bit harder here to get another one in there to make sure that it gets done.
Yeah, or if there's
So,
something damaged or what like whatever it is, you got to replace something or restock something. It just gives you that little bit of flexibility with that. Yeah.
yeah. So, but what about some big challenges? Like, what are some things that sort of got in the way and you really had to hunker down or figure out how to get around them? Anything like that?
We haven't, nothing sticks out to my mind. We haven't had any huge challenges yet. I think we were very thorough with picking our property that we wanted to buy for a cottage.
Mhm.
I was watching the market for, I don't know, I want to say a year or so before we picked one. It was, we had very particular, things we wanted. We wanted 4 season. We wanted it right on the water. We wanted it semi-private, so where it's not, there's some cottages you can get in like the Kawartha areas where you've got a 60-foot lot and your neighbors are right beside you. And I don't find that very peaceful. So we wanted to make sure we get a bigger yard. Location, we wanted something that was on a municipal road, so it was plowed, easy to get to. We didn't want guests having to drive down 16 different little cottage roads and get lost. And we're getting calls like, hey, how do I get here? But quite enough that you're not, right on a major highway kind of thing, close to town. So I think we were pretty good at picking the product that we picked with our cottage because it's 8 minutes to Bancroft. It's 5 minutes to a little general store. Um, it's a municipal road. It's got 122 feet of waterfront. It's got a sandy beach entry. So you can walk in. So older people, younger people can get in easily. You can dive off the dock. Um, it's like I don't know. I think we were very thorough with what we picked and making sure that we've just given what we've been through with the flip that we did and the problems we ran into with the Peterborough property and the contractor and issues with the barn. We were much more thorough with our research on what we really wanted to do. And my wife and I had been renting cottages for years prior, so we kind of knew like here's little things we didn't like when we went here. Here's things we did like. So we really wanted to base our experience for when guests come up that we had everything. We had the coffee stations, we had the tea, we had every utensil you could need in the kitchen, plates, cups, plastic cups, um, all of that stuff. So, I wanted to make sure that it kind of was all there. So we really truly haven't had any big problems as of yet.
But
Thankfully,
at the
fingers
Peterborough
crossed.
place, you had some issues.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess I'm trying to drive this home because we don't want to, there's oftentimes, where I think it's important to talk about the challenges that you've had and how you've overcome them, right? So that people can know that, when problems do arise and they're going to, that there's always a way through them.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So we
So,
can talk about Peterborough.
yeah, sure, that'd be good.
Okay.
Like, cause, to hear about the experience would be a good thing.
Yeah. So I touched on it just a little bit. So Peterborough was a century home that we had purchased, and it was a large lot with an old 2-story barn on it. And it was still in downtown Peterborough in a sense. It wasn't like in the outskirts of, a smaller town. It was still in Peterborough proper. So we interviewed a few contractors. We had a contractor who was referred to us, and we went with them. And we were told 4 to 6 months for the renovation project to convert the upper 800 square feet of this barn into a 2-story apartment. So leaving us with 2 units on the property. And then the hope was down the road, we convert the lower unit of the barn into another 750 square feet approximately, another 2-bedroom unit. Unfortunately, we had a contractor that just either took on too much work, didn't hire good subcontractors, or was not capable of this job. Whatever it may be, the weeks started creeping by and we were nowhere near on target to be completed within the 4 months or the long-term 6 month. So it was
Were
middle
they
of,
there every day or just not showing up?
um, well, because I live in Whitby and the property was in Peterborough, I wasn't there every day.
Mhm.
And again, coming back to flexibility of why I wanted to go self-employed and have that flexibility, um, I couldn't be there every day. So I'd go out every couple weekends and check on it. But my tenants in the house would say, "Hey, there's no one here today," or the guys are just sitting around most of the day, or did you know they left bags of concrete out in the rain, or did you know they just left plywood out in the rain? And I'm like, oh, okay, just kind of gave, thinking they didn't know what they're talking about, or really didn't put too much into it. And then as things creeped along, they started adding up that, hey, this guy is not doing his job, or his contractors on site are not doing their job properly.
Mhm.
So we made a decision about 4 months, 3, 4 months in, when he came back to us saying, oh, we're going to be asking you for another 10, 15 grand. We need to put what's called an injector pump in. It's kind of like a sub pump, as most people probably know, but it's just bigger. Because the property sloped from front to back, the barn was lower than where the municipal water and sewage was. So we had to pump it back up to a certain level. And he told us when we signed the contract that we would not be out of pocket any more expenses. He's built in contingencies for everything. And he kept coming back for more money and said he already spent 10 grand of our money putting in an AC unit, which was already in the contract. So we just were like, hey, it just became a huge problem. It's like, he's telling us one thing, doing another. And then again, telling us another thing, coming back for money. And nothing was adding up. So we decided to say, okay, let's cut ties. We had paid him already 60 grand at this point to where we were. And there, there was nothing done really. So we had the city inspector come in, and the framing was not done to code. Nothing was square, nothing was level, nothing was plumb. We had to basically rip out half the framing, redo it. The joists were not in properly. There was problems left, right, and center. The HVAC was not done properly. We had to get an HVAC come in. They had to red tag it, and we almost got our gas shut off for the main property as well too, because of the problems with this contractor. So it went from us hiring someone that was supposed to do everything in 4 to 6 months and having 2 units and everything was be perfect, to where I had never dealt with a city. I've never done with an inspection. I had never done anything like that, to me taking on having to contact the building inspectors, hire new contractors. I ended up general contracting it myself and hiring out every contractor. So that way, if something went wrong, it was one small portion of the project, not the entire project. That way I could cut ties with someone who's only supposed to do a 5,000 job, not a $55,000 job, where it would be more time and more money. So it was a lot of stress on myself. I had some sleepless nights. It was a lot of stress on my family. Um, we've since ended up suing that contractor. We are taking him to small claims courts, in hopes that we can recoup some of our money that we've lost, because that project was supposed to be done September 2021. It didn't get completed until November of 2022. So a year later, 14 months later, it was finally completed. So during that time frame, if we wind back the calendar, we'll remember that the market slowed down substantially. Interest rates started rising. And where our property probably was going to be close to $1 million value in 2021, it dropped significantly. So when we decided to sell it, I can't even remember the numbers exactly right now. It was a substantial loss from where the peak was, plus the carrying costs, plus the added expenses of hiring other contractors. So we ended up going way over budget what we were quoted because of all these delays and added costs. So in the end, it was a good experience in the way I look at it, because I got to go to school and I didn't have to pay to go to school. Yeah, did I lose money from where I could have made money? Absolutely. But I still was not out money out of pocket as sense. You know, my profit margin shrank significantly. So is there troubles with real estate? Absolutely. Um, I think yeah, I don't know. I think that's enough information unless you got more questions.
I remember I remember talking to you about this a while ago, actually. Funny enough, I think we had a call maybe a couple of years ago on this.
I think we did. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I was thinking
remember.
about shifting to, kind of doing something with you as more passive in a sense and doing multifamily in that. And so, yeah, I was looking at dispersing my capital elsewhere once we were getting over this hump. So, yeah.
I think that's going to be a pretty common issue, and I like that one because most of the time it's the financial piece. People tend to say that the biggest challenges they've had is getting the financing together, right? So I do like hearing some of these things, and they are tough, and you did get through it, and like you said, you learned from it. So I think one of the big things though to learn out of that is just that, and I've fired so many contractors. I have no idea how many, a lot.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
And it got a lot easier as it went. So yeah, the first one I'm stressing and not knowing and saying, oh, I don't want to fire this guy. He knows the job. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe things are the way that he says they are, and all that kind of stuff too. But then as you go, it does get easier to recognize when things are not going the way that they should,
Yep.
and a lot easier to fire that contractor and get somebody else in there.
Yeah, I think it's like it was a big learning curve, a lot of stress, definitely lost some hair over it. um, but it made me a stronger person. It made me realize what I'm capable of, and what I can do and what I can tackle if I really put my mind to it, and what's available to be done. And again, I lean on my network. Um, One of my first statements I made when we started the podcast, your net worth is your network. And I was reaching out to anybody and everybody, friends, family, who were contractors, again, subdividing up the work for an HVAC guy I knew, or, I got saved. A buddy of mine started doing self-employed, his own contracting work, framing and stuff. So he happened to be just starting out just as I needed someone, and he saved my butt. So he was able to redo all the major construction work with the framing and everything else, and installing the windows and doing all the work to fix the problems that were there. So the other steps were easier, and it does get easier. And when we went to buy our cottage, there was already an offer on our cottage, and we said to the realtor that was selling it, I said, don't accept their offer. We are buying this place. And she's like, I'm sorry, it's already signed. I said, well, if it breaks through, do not put it back on the market because we're buying it. So it ended up breaking through with their purchase agreement for whatever reason. I think the reason was there was small structural issues in the cottage. It was, it's 70, 80 years old or whatever it is. And the main beam in the basement was only held up by 2x4s. So I think that deterred them from buying it. For us, I was like, that's a walk in the park considering what we just came from with Peterborough. I just called my contracting buddy again and I said, hey, you want to go do another framing job for me? He said, no problem. So he put
Yeah,
in a new
you
beam in the
learned.
basement and, a few grand. It
Yeah.
didn't scare us coming into the cottage. And knowing buying this, because everything else about this cottage was perfect. It was like, okay, the basement, needs to be framed better. All right, no problem. Just hire someone to do it. We negotiated that into our pricing on purchasing it because, they already lost someone to buy it. So it just, you kind of earn your stripes. You put in your hours and your time, and you just get better with things. Just like anything, when you first start a job, you're a little nervous. You're not sure how to do something, how to submit, some type of paperwork or whatever it is. And 6 months, a year, 6 years go by, and it's a second thought to you. You don't even, you just do it. So
Very good. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, so tell us now a little bit about Morgix. Is that how
yeah,
you say it?
yeah, and
Morgix.
Morgix, yeah, Morgix Mortgage. So that's the brokerage I've shifted over to now. I've been self-employed for almost 6 months. I'm really enjoying it. The two guys that own the brokerage, I had dealings with in my prior work experience. So the opportunity arose where they were looking for agents, and I was just ready to make the move. So they kind of gave me a bit of kind of a leeway with I don't want to say a salary, but like just kind of a base for me to get started on while I started to build my clientele, because I'd worked in a commission salary structure before. So for me to move fully commission, giving me that base was really good for me to get started with things. And now I look at what I've got on the go. I got a little whiteboard here of all my clients I've got on the go, and it's full. I'm running out of room. So I know that things are going well. And I know that I'm doing, the best I can with that job, and the flexibility that comes with it is great. So allows me to take an hour of my day to be on a podcast where I wouldn't have had that time before.
Right. Yeah, that's perfect.
That's
Love a little
cool.
bit of time freedom.
Yeah. Yep. And then, I'll make calls at nighttime and different things like that. Like, I'll take calls, get the kids to bed, and then all of a sudden at 8 o'clock, I got a client that needs to talk to me. So I can do that. Like I can have that flexibility where someone needs to talk to me at 8 p.m. because they can't escape their 9 to 5 to make a phone call. I have that flexibility where I can do something during the day, take calls in the evenings. I can travel, and do stuff in the evenings, weekends, whenever I kind of need to make sure my clients' needs are being serviced.
Yeah, that's
You could
cool.
even take a trip to Costa Rica if you wanted to.
I could. I mean, I think you got an Airbnb or something down there, right?
It's got a hotel.
Got
I
the
saw
hotel
that.
now too. Yeah, Manta Ray
Yeah.
Lodge.
I think
Everybody,
I did see you purchase that. I saw the posting on Instagram there. Is that
Yeah.
fully operational now?
is is getting there. We've got
Okay.
reservations for
Awesome.
December.
Okay.
So again, it's like the permitting process is unbelievable here. But we want to make sure it's all up and running well, because I'm gonna put it back on the market, and hopefully I'll just, because it's kind of like a flip, right?
Okay.
It was a mess when we got it. So we've turned it around, getting all the permits. They didn't even have construction permits when they built the place.
Oh wow.
So we had to take care of all of that and then get the new permits. And so that's been taking a long time. But it's pretty much there. And I've got my manager, and he tells me that he's on top of it. And like within the next week or so, we should be fully up and running legit.
Hey,
Amazing.
very
Yeah.
cool. That's good. We'll have to take
And
a
we do
trip
have
out
the
there.
Airbnb as well, but actually we just sold it. So it just
Uh,
went firm like yesterday.
Congrats.
So yeah,
oh,
thank you.
cool. Getting stuff done. So you're
Get some
doing
stuff
stuff.
done.
You're getting stuff done.
Yeah, I'm trying here and there. I
So,
like to relax as well. You know, take it
so
easy.
Alan, what's a piece of advice or information that's always stuck with you, and how has it helped you?
I'm going to say it again for the third time. Your net worth is your network. Don't be afraid to make contact with people. Um, Almost anybody in the investment world has taken time to speak with me. Um, and I've taken time now with other people to speak to them. Just don't be afraid to make connections. Talk to someone, see, you never know what you may be able to offer them. You may think they have everything they need and their pieces are all put together and they're perfect, but you may have a quick chat and all of a sudden you may know something that they didn't know, and you may be able to help them out with something, and vice versa. So honestly, just get out there, connect with people, go to Durham REI, group and, connect with some of the great people that show up there, sit at the table, go out for a beer afterwards with everybody, listen to the podcasts, start from day one. Rob's had this going for many years now, and listen to them, listen to the experiences, learn from other people's mistakes. You can pick up so much from just turning on a podcast and listening while you're driving to work, listening while you're on the treadmill, or while you're doing a workout, or whatever it is. Take that time to listen and educate yourself, because you never know where a connection is going to save you a year or 2 years down the road by just listening and understanding someone's story. So
Yeah.
yeah.
We did like a little bit of a boat cruise for members in August, and you know what? I even picked up like a new commercial lender that I could use for my residential property as a refinance and pull out capital,
Amazing.
and I got a tip on some of the pest control at my buildings that a property manager what they were doing. So just having those conversations with people who are in the same kind of space as you never know what you're going to get out of it. And, that potentially, next year, if that lender's still available, I could pull out, maybe $100,000 from a property, which is, huge. So you're absolutely, I think that's great advice. So thank you for that. That was great.
Yeah. And the one final thing to continue on with that is you never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
Make yourself uncomfortable. Go to events and places where you don't know everything and learn more. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you for sharing all this with us today. I really appreciate you taking the time. Glad that you are in a position to be able to take the time. So congratulations on that too. And how can people reach out to you? What's the best way?
They could reach out to me on my cell, 905-626-1879. You can reach out to me on Instagram. That's probably one of the easiest ones. You can add me. Let me just pull it up here and confirm what it is again. It's Allan Bell _ mortgages. So
Allan with it. Yeah.
ALLAN, and then Bell like the telephone _ mortgages. So that's the easiest way. Probably reach out to me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, or just give me an old-fashioned phone call and let's chat. Let's see what I can do to help you out. Network.
Awesome.
Okay,
Good stuff.
that sounds great. And all that contact info will be in the show notes for this episode. So you can go over there and you'll be able to reach out to Allan through there. That phone number he just said, it'll be in there too. So it's all good. Quentin, how can people reach out to you?
If you want to do a 15-minute call like I did with Alan a few years ago, you can go to quintindesouza.com and book a call. I'm happy to chat, hopefully point you in the right direction and, utilize some 20 years of real estate knowledge. So, you're free to do that. Otherwise, you can come out to our meetings, durhamrei.ca, and we have members all across Canada because we stream live. So it's always cool. And how
Very
about
good.
you, Rob? How can people get a hold of you?
The best way is just email me, rob@mrbreakthrough.ca, and go over and check out mantarelodgecr.com. And
Awesome.
thank you for listening, everybody. Appreciate again, Allan, taking the time. And everybody, we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being a guest.